Some hurts don't come with screaming. They come with 5 empty chairs at your graduation. Seats your family promised they'd fill. Your name gets called, you shake hands, you smile for the photos while your chest is burning because they chose your sister's bridal shower instead. And we've all felt that kind of absence, haven't we? The kind that makes you question what you're worth. Today's story isn't for us to celebrate anyone's downfall, and it's not to judge people like they're simple. I just want us to walk into it gently. Because sometimes the moment that breaks you is also the moment that frees you. Because right after the ceremony, you open your diploma holder expecting your degree, and a plain envelope slides out. Not from the university. No logo. No return address. Before you can even read it, your phone explodes 72 missed calls from your family. The same family that couldn't show up. Suddenly desperate to reach you. So what was in that letter? What were they so terrified you'd learn? Let's get into it. My name is Talon Pierce, and I'm about to tell you what was really inside that envelope, what my family was hiding behind all those empty chairs, and the exact second I stopped being the easy one they could control. But before I share this, I just want to know you're here with me. Drop a simple hi in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes knowing one real person is listening makes the whole thing feel survivable. And if you've ever been the one who shows up for everyone else only to realize no one shows up for you, consider subscribing. Not because I'm trying to grow a channel, but because stories like this hit different when you don't have to carry them alone. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. There's something about a graduation hall that makes even disappointment echo louder. The applause always sounds generous, but when it's not for you, it feels like a lie. My name was called Talon Pierce, Master of Clinical Psychology, and I stepped onto the stage with that fake smile I'd rehearsed for this exact moment. 5 empty chairs in the middle of the reserved section stared back at me like hollow eye sockets. I already knew they wouldn't be there. They told me the week before. We really tried, but Paisley's bridal shower is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Apparently a second daughter's second degree doesn't even make the calendar. I wasn't supposed to care. I'd told myself that 100 times. This wasn't for them. This was for me. I'd paid for it, lived through it, earned it. I even made peace with walking solo across that stage because Avery Santos, my best friend and fellow survivor of the psych program, was here for me. She cheered louder than anyone else even whistled. But it didn't drown out the silence coming from those 5 goddamn chairs. I took the diploma holder with both hands. It felt heavier than expected. I walked off stage trying not to think too hard about the weight or the way it made my heart sink. I found a quieter spot off to the side near a hallway and opened the holder, ready to glance at the degree that cost me 6 years and every ounce of pride I had left. But there wasn't just a degree inside. A thick white envelope slid out, landing face up in my lap. My name was written across it in looping, careful handwriting. Talon. No return address, no university seal. The paper was textured expensive, formal, and completely out of place. I held it in my hand for a second too long, sensing something I couldn't name yet. Before I could even get my thumb under the flap to open it, my phone lit up. Buzz, 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 buzz. It wouldn't stop. My hands were shaking. I turned it over and stared at the screen. 72 missed calls. All from 3 people: Dad, Mom, Paisley. Over and over again. The first one was 3 hours ago, then every few minutes, then every few seconds. As if someone had lit a fuse and they were panicking before it hit the powder. A text flashed across the top of the screen from Mom. Don't sign anything. Don't talk to anyone. We're coming to you. That's when my gut turned cold. I didn't say anything when Avery rejoined me. She asked what was wrong, but I just slipped the envelope back into the diploma holder and clutched it to my chest. I wasn't ready to explain what I didn't understand yet. Not out loud. We exited the auditorium with the rest of the graduates. Everyone else was hugging their families, taking photos, holding flowers. I looked back once at those 5 empty seats and felt something crack. Not sadness, not bitterness, something else. A switch. A realization. They were afraid. They skipped my graduation not because I didn't matter, but because they thought they still had time to control what came next. And now someone had slipped a match into my hands and dared me to light it. I found a quieter hallway, pressed my back against the cool wall, and finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single typed letter, legal, cold, but signed in pen at the bottom. From Gideon Barron, attorney at law. Subject: Celeste Whitaker Estate. Recipient: Talon Pierce. I read the first few lines and felt the ground vanish under me. You are the sole inheritor of Celeste Whitaker's estate as named in the most recent codicil to her will. This includes all property assets and associated trusts. The family has been made aware of this. Below that, handwritten in blue ink: Call me immediately. Before they make a move you can't undo. And before I could even breathe, a notification popped up on my phone. Location alert: SUV shared location is nearing University of New Mexico campus. They weren't calling to apologize. They weren't calling to celebrate. They were calling because they knew, and they were already on their way. Avery offered to drive, but I shook my head. I needed the wheel. I needed control. I didn't tell her about the inheritance yet. I wasn't ready to say it out loud. I just said they're coming, and that was enough for her to go quiet. We made it to the car parked near the edge of the lot. The New Mexico sun was brutal, casting long shadows between rows of celebrating families. Everyone was hugging, snapping photos, sweaty but joyful. I turned the ignition, checked my rear view, and a black SUV peeled in from the left and cut us off, stopping diagonally to block the path out. Aimed like a weapon. My dad's car. He rolled the window down, his voice like a slamming door. Talon. Step out. That tone always used to freeze me. It was the tone of grounding punishments, confiscated car keys, and years of being told, "This is for your own good." I stepped out before he could repeat himself. Avery called after me, but I raised a hand. I didn't want her caught in this. This wasn't her war. This was blood and debt and control and guilt wrapped in designer sunglasses and matching worry lines. Dad opened his door but didn't get out. Mom did. She marched toward me in heels way too high for a college parking lot, holding her phone like it was a weapon. "Where is it?" she demanded. "No congratulations," I asked. "You need to give me the envelope, Talon. Right now. You don't understand what's at stake." Dad joined her. "This isn't the time to be stubborn. Let the adults handle this." "Funny," I said. "You weren't this interested in handling anything when I was drowning in student debt." Paisley finally emerged from the back seat, still in her white shower dress makeup, perfect, even though she was clearly sweating. She scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. You're going to ruin everything like you always do. Just hand it over." That's when I said it. "How do you know there was an envelope?" 3 heads froze. They didn't even bother to lie. That pause, that half-second of raw panic, was the first honest moment I'd gotten from them in years. Dad recovered first. "We got a call. There's been a misunderstanding. Let us clear it up." "No," I said. "Let me." People nearby started slowing their pace. Someone actually turned a camera phone in our direction. Mom's voice switched instantly, silky, performative. "Talon, honey, you're upset. Let's talk in the car." "This isn't the place." "It's exactly the place I cut in. Because this is the first time you're not the ones holding the script." Paisley snapped. "You don't even know what you're holding." She was right. I didn't. But that wasn't the point. What mattered was that they did. I stepped back toward my car. "I'm not signing anything. I'm not handing it over. And I'm not going to let you spin this like you always do." Mom lunged one step forward like she might try to grab my arm, but Avery was already out of the car and standing by me. Silent. Steady. "Move your car," I told Dad. He didn't move. So I did. I got back in my car, reversed just enough to veer into another exit, scraping a bit of curb as I bolted out of the lot. They didn't follow at first, but 5 minutes down the road I spotted the SUV, 2 cars back in my mirror. Avery saw it too. "They're tailing you." I nodded. "Let them. I'm done hiding." Then my phone vibrated again. A text from an unknown number. You're not ready for this. Don't be stupid. P. Paisley. No longer passive, no longer dismissive, now threatening. Whatever was in that envelope, it was big enough to make them chase me down in public, lie to my face, and send threats behind my back. And I had no intention of letting it go. I took the turn into the grocery store parking lot without signaling. The SUV wasn't far behind, but I managed to cut through 3 rows of parked cars and tuck my car between a delivery truck and a van with sunshades over the windshield. The moment we stopped, Avery ducked, holding her breath. I killed the engine and watched the rearview mirror. 10 seconds passed. The SUV cruised by, slow at first, then sped up toward the far exit. Avery exhaled. You've done this before. Living with my family's like growing up in a Cold War. You learn how to disappear. We waited another 2 minutes before pulling back onto the main road. I didn't talk. She didn't push. She just stayed close. 5 minutes later, I turned into the glass and wood office complex that housed Barron Legal Group. Clean lines, tinted windows, a feeling like walking into a courtroom even before you got inside. But before I could park, the SUV appeared again, this time already there. They'd beaten us. I slammed on the brakes. Dad stepped out first, planting himself at the entrance. Sunglasses on, posture stiff. His hand rested against the glass as if it were his property. Mom was next, her eyes already shiny but not from sunlight. Paisley stood a few feet back, biting her lip like she hadn't decided whether to beg or sneer. I grabbed the envelope from the glove compartment. You sure you want to do this? Avery asked. I've never been more sure of anything. We stepped out together, but I moved ahead. Dad's voice came low and heavy. Talon. You walk in there, that's it. You're choosing outsiders over blood. Mom added. Please, baby, just talk to us. Don't let some lawyer twist everything. We can fix this. Paisley took a softer tone than usual. You don't have to make it worse. Just give it back. We'll handle it like adults. I stopped inches from Dad's hand on the glass. This morning you made a choice, I said. You didn't show up for me. You showed up to control me, and now it's too late. I pushed the door open and walked through. The glass door closed behind me with a soft hiss that felt like a steel gate slamming down. The lobby was silent and cool, the kind of professional hush you only get in places where life-changing decisions are made. A receptionist greeted me by name. Mr. Barron is expecting you. So the letter hadn't been a gamble. It was planned. We were led to a private conference room with high windows and thick carpet. Gideon Barron stood as we entered. Early 60s, silver hair, blue eyes that didn't blink often. He extended his hand with the kind of calm that said he'd stared down families like mine before. I'm glad you came, he said and turned to Avery. And I'm glad you brought a witness. He didn't waste time. Mr. Pierce Celeste Whitaker named you sole heir to her estate 8 months before her passing. The assets include real property, trust accounts, and investment holdings. Your name appears in all final versions of her will and codicils. I kept waiting for the catch. My family contested, I asked. They tried. The claims were rejected on the basis of clear intent and signed documentation. What's more interesting is how they attempted to delay your notification. He leaned forward. They wanted time. They needed you unaware. He reached for a folder and laid out a document across the table. This is your official status as the inheritor. We've filed all necessary court confirmations. They're past the point of stopping it. I almost laughed from the absurdity. So why the panic? He smiled, just barely. Because they know this. He tapped the folder, isn't the whole story. What does that mean? There's a safe deposit box at City National Bank. It holds additional materials your grandmother left in trust. She gave specific instructions you were not to open them unless you were being pressured or misled. Avery straightened in her chair. She predicted this. She understood your father well. He slid a second sealed envelope toward me. It was labeled in cursive handwriting, open, only if they make you doubt yourself. Gideon added, there's more. Evidence documents. One item in particular we believe might be critical, a copy of a power of attorney. That stopped me cold. Power of attorney, I asked. Yes. It appears you signed it years ago, granting authority over certain transactions I don't remember. That's what they count on. We believe it relates to a parcel of land within the inheritance. I stared at the envelope still sealed. Then my phone buzzed again. A voicemail. Unknown number. I played it on speaker. A male voice, calm, corporate, and clipped. Mr. Pierce, this is a courtesy follow-up regarding the closing date on the land agreement. If we don't receive final signatures by Friday, the deal expires. If this was an oversight, please contact us. We're operating under the assumption that your scan was valid. I looked at Gideon. They're already trying to push something through, he said. A deal. Probably backed by your father. If they've uploaded a scanned version of your signature... He didn't finish. I didn't need him to. They're moving fast, I whispered, trying to close something before I can stop it. He nodded. We'll go to the bank now, he said. City National Bank looked like it hadn't been remodeled since the 80s. Marble floors, tall ceilings, security cameras in every corner. The air smelled faintly of paper and ozone. A vault in the back waited behind 2 layers of reinforced glass. Gideon handled the front desk. I waited beside Avery, my name echoing slightly off the walls as I signed the authorization paperwork. This is all yours, the clerk said, verifying ID. The box was registered by Ms. Whitaker with a clause for sole access. Upon her death, no third-party claims allowed. She walked us into a back corridor through a locked gate, then handed me a metal key. Room 5. I held the key like it might bite. Inside the box waited in a recessed wall panel. The clerk slid it free, placed it on the center table, and left. Gideon closed the door. This is where everything changes, he said. I opened the lid. Inside were 4 neatly organized folders bound in ribbon and a small jewelry box tucked into the corner. I opened the first bundle. A handwritten letter from Celeste. Pages long. A love letter to a grandson she clearly believed deserved the truth. She warned me about the family's narrative, told me never to believe their version of her estate. She described the property in question, 40 acres of untouched New Mexico land, and how my father had begged her to sign it over to him more than once. She refused every time. The second folder was sealed. Gideon carefully broke the tape and laid out a document labeled, "To be opened only if Talon is coerced or misled." Inside detailed logs of my father's attempts to use the land as collateral for loan letters from banks and Celeste's notarized affidavits rejecting the deals. She'd documented everything. The third folder held property assessments maps and communication from a development firm eager to acquire the land for a resort project. Big money. Then the final folder. That's where I saw it. My name, my signature. A scanned copy dated 6 years ago. I remembered the day in pieces. I was home on break. Dad said it was a routine form insurance or something. I was half asleep signing while eating breakfast. It was a general power of attorney. Still valid. Gideon swore under his breath. They've been sitting on this, waiting. The voicemail. It's from the development firm. They think this sale is cleared. My throat went dry. They're about to sign away the land using my signature. Gideon nodded. Unless we stop it by morning. My phone buzzed again. A text from a new number. From a new. Attached a PDF. Screenshot of a nearly completed contract. My signature already placed. Text below it. You're already in. Don't drag this out. I turned to Gideon. He looked at me without blinking. If we don't act now, he said, by tomorrow that land won't belong to you. And worse, if the deal sours, you'll be liable for the fallout. I clenched the phone in my fist, and for the first time I understood. This wasn't about inheritance. This was about sabotage disguised as love. And they were almost done pulling it off. I woke up to Avery's voice shaking with quiet fury. You need to see this. She held out her phone screen aglow with a family group thread that I didn't even know still had me in it. Screenshots of vague concern. We're worried about Talon. He's been spiraling. Law school stress really got to him. Then came the line that felt like a punch to the gut. We don't think he's in the right headspace to make legal decisions right now. They weren't just attacking me, they were trying to erase me. I didn't answer her right away. I just stared at my own name next to words like unstable, manic, dangerous. They weren't calling me evil, they were calling me sick. And worse, fragile. Someone whose signature couldn't be trusted, whose voice shouldn't count in a courtroom. When I got to Gideon's office, the storm had already reached him. They emailed my assistant, he said flatly. Twice. Once to suggest that you're being coerced by some outsider. I assume that's me, and another to warn that you're not of sound mind. They're pushing for a third-party review. They want a conservatorship, I asked. Not yet. But they're laying the groundwork. He tapped his fingers on his desk. It's an old trick in inheritance disputes. Discredit the heir, delay the claim. If they file a temporary hold on your rights, we'll be stuck in limbo for weeks. That's time enough for them to finalize whatever deal they've already put in motion. Avery clenched her fists. They're using his degree against him. The irony. Gideon drafted a letter that same hour. We sent formal notification that all communications regarding Celeste Whitaker's estate had to go through his office. Then he pushed a new packet in front of me, a revocation document for any and all prior powers of attorney, specifically targeting the decade-old signature I'd seen yesterday. We file this today, he said. It won't reverse the past, but it'll stop them from trying to reuse that ghost. I signed. My hand didn't even tremble. We were about to leave when Gideon's phone buzzed. He held it to his ear, listened without interrupting, then turned to me. There's someone who wants to meet you. His name's Rowan Klein. Says he works or worked with the development company tied to the property. He said, and I quote, Talon's signature is being used to close a deal he doesn't know exists. I don't want to be part of a felony. We met Rowan in the back booth of a forgettable cafe just outside the city. He was lean tense with a Bluetooth still in his ear like he hadn't had a day off in years. His eyes flicked between me and Avery before settling on a worn manila envelope in his lap. I don't want trouble, he said, sliding it across the table. But I'm not going down for this. Inside were printed emails, PDF contracts, scanned IDs. They'd said I was abroad. They'd told his team I was unreachable due to medical leave, that Harlan Pierce, my father, was authorized to finalize everything. They even CC'd a scanned copy of my ID and signature. They had answers ready for everything Rowan said, and they used a local notary that signed off on dozens of documents for them over the years. I thought it was odd at the time, but families are weird, you know. My mouth was dry. What's the timeline? They want it signed, sealed, and filed by Friday. 48 hours. Back at Gideon's office, I told him everything. He didn't look surprised. Angry, yes, but not surprised. Rowan mentioned something else, I added. He said the bridal shower, that was a decoy. My family wasn't just celebrating Paisley, they were in Santa Fe meeting with the company. Gideon sighed. So they skipped your graduation to finalize the theft of what you inherited. As we left the office, my phone buzzed again. A blocked number. Then a notification. You've received a legal inquiry. Attached was a PDF labeled Capacity Evaluation Request. Talon Pierce. Filed anonymously. I showed Gideon. They're not just stealing land, I whispered. They're trying to legally silence me. He nodded. Then tomorrow we speak louder. The next 12 hours blurred into a legal triage. Gideon worked like a surgeon under fire. He drafted affidavits revoking all prior authorities' letters, flagging fraudulent use of my name, and a statement under oath that I had not and would not authorize the sale of the Santa Fe property. We drove to the county recorder's office before dawn, arriving just as the doors unlocked. The woman at the front desk looked unimpressed until Gideon laid the packet down. It's urgent. Fraudulent real estate transfer. We believe forged documents are in queue. She scanned it quickly, then nodded. We'll mark the parcel as flagged. If anything comes through, it'll trigger a hold. Gideon leaned close to me as we walked out. That buys us a little time. Not much. The next blow came midday and it hit hard. Gideon's paralegal pulled up a scheduling notice from the recorder's system. The Pierce Trust, operating under a shell LLC, had filed pre-approval for transfer. Their notary had submitted supporting documents that morning. They were hours ahead of us. We called the developer directly. A project manager answered confused but polite. Gideon told her point blank, "You are relying on a signature that's been used without consent. If you finalize this, you are complicit." There was a long pause. Then she hung up. When we returned to my temporary place, their car was already parked across the street. My father was pacing. My mother sat in the passenger seat, tear-streaked. Paisley leaned against the hood like she was in a drama she didn't understand. I didn't go out. I hit record on my phone and captured the whole thing. The yelling, the guilt trips, the sobs, and above all, the threat. "If you ruin this for us, you're dead to this family." Later that night, I pulled the sealed envelope from Celeste's folder, the one labeled, "Only open if they push you." I tore it open. Inside was a letter. Her handwriting was shaky but firm. "I told your father no. He brought a notary to my house and I made them leave. He said if I didn't help him leverage the Santa Fe land, everything would fall apart. I said I would rather burn it than see him sell it behind your back. If they ever say you are not well, it means they are out of time. That is the final play in their book. They used it once before on someone else. I was there. I watched it work. Use this letter. Use this plan. I chose you because I knew they'd never see you coming." Attached was a checklist of 2 names neighbors who could testify that she was lucid and coherent in her final days. Another sheet was addressed to Gideon. She had trusted him. She had counted on him to protect me. And then I saw it. Folded behind the letter. A second envelope. This one was labeled "Deliver on the day he walks the stage." It had a short note inside. "They won't come, I know that. But I wanted the only thing you got that day to be the truth, not their silence." Avery stood beside me as I read it, hand on my shoulder. Gideon called again. "They filed an emergency petition. They want to initiate conservatorship and remove your legal authority until a psychiatric evaluation." I closed my eyes. "What's our move?" "We force them into the light," he said. "A public reading, full legal recording. We make them sit and hear the will. We show them the documents. We make their lies burn in front of witnesses." I nodded. "Send the invite." As I lay in bed that night, a new email pinged the formal meeting time. 40 hours, a public reading of the last will and testament of Celeste Whitaker. A second ping followed right behind it, a scanned letterhead from a local psychiatric evaluator. "Initial findings suggest Mr. Talon Pierce may be under emotional duress, recommending temporary suspension of his legal decision-making power until further review." They were building a prison with my name on it, but I had the key. Celeste gave it to me, and now they'd have to face me while I used it. I arrived early. Baron Legal's conference room was still half-lit, sterile, cool, all glass and steel. Avery sat beside me, her hand loosely wrapped around a steaming cup of green tea, her eyes sweeping the hallway every few seconds like she expected a gunshot instead of a door opening. I didn't speak. Neither did she. But when Gideon came in crisp as ever in a navy suit and cold expression, he gave me a quick nod. "We have one shot. Stay on track. Don't take their bait. No matter what." I nodded. On the table were 3 folders. One for the will. One for the sealed appendix. One for evidence of forgery and manipulation. Everything in triplicate. Everything notarized. 10 minutes later, they arrived. Meredith led the charge, her silk scarf tied too tightly around her throat. Harlan followed like he was walking into a deposition. Paisley trailed behind in soft pastels and a sour look, clutching her phone like it was an inhaler. The moment they sat down, Meredith leaned toward Gideon. "Mr. Barron, if I may, my son is under a lot of stress. He's not well. We're deeply concerned." I didn't flinch. I had rehearsed this part in my head 100 times. "I'm not interested in a sidebar," Gideon replied calmly. "Everything said in this room is on record." Paisley made a pained noise. He's letting people fill his head with lies. This is all about him being bitter over the bridal shower. I stared at her. That was the bait. The old game. Redirect, deflect, weaponize love. I didn't move. Harlan finally spoke. Are you proud of this? Dragging your own family into court like we're strangers. I didn't drag you here, I said. The law did. I just stopped stepping aside for you. Gideon slid the first folder across the table. We'll begin with the execution of the will. He read it aloud, firm and steady, sole beneficiary Talon Whitaker. Full rights to property, financial accounts, and residual assets. Signed and witnessed legally. Harlan scoffed. She was old, confused. Someone got in her head. Gideon held up another document. Your challenge was already reviewed and dismissed by the court. Your objections were found to have no merit. Still, Meredith said quickly, we believe Talon's mental health should be evaluated before anything is finalized. There it was again. The drumbeat of their strategy. If you can't discredit the facts, discredit the person. Let's go through a few facts, I said, my voice even. I received a sealed envelope in my diploma holder. The only reason you didn't destroy it is because you didn't know she left it there. And I got 72 missed calls the same night from all of you. That was panic, not concern. I leaned forward, placed both palms on the table. You weren't trying to protect me. You were trying to stop me from reading something that would destroy your control. Careful how you talk to your mother, Harlan snapped. But I didn't back down. Careful how you talk to the man who holds the will. Gideon opened the second folder. These are communications between a real estate development firm and a supposed representative of Mr. Whitaker, he said. Emails arranging to push through a property transaction during the exact hours of the so-called bridal shower. Rowan's voice came through the speakerphone on cue. They told us Talon was out of the country, or unavailable for health reasons. I was pressured to move ahead with the paperwork based on assurances from someone claiming to be a family representative. That hung in the air like the stink of something rotting. They were trying to sell the land while telling me to celebrate my sister's wedding shower, I said. They weren't choosing family over me. They were choosing fraud. Harlan opened his mouth, but Gideon was already ahead of him. Let's proceed to the appendix. He unsealed the final envelope. Inside was Celeste Whitaker's handwriting, familiar, elegant, deliberate. She suspected you'd try this, Gideon said without looking up. She wrote here that you once took her to sign documents she didn't understand. She wrote that she refused to sell the land because she believed you'd leverage it for loans or promises you couldn't keep. She warned that if anyone ever tried to paint Talon as unstable, it would be a manipulation. Paisley had gone silent. Meredith's lips were trembling. Harlan just leaned back and folded his arms as if the air had left the room. Then came the final blow. I never gave power of attorney to anyone, I said. Not for this land, not for any account. And certainly not to people who saw me as an obstacle instead of a son. And yet Gideon added a power of attorney document was used with Talon's scanned signature to attempt a property transfer. He dialed again. This time the voice from the real estate company came on. We were under the impression he consented. His family assured us it was just a formality. We were working on a tight timeline. You were fed a forgery, Gideon replied. Continuing with the transaction opens you to liability. Silence. Then a flat, we'll put the file on hold. Paisley suddenly stood. Why does this feel like a trap? Her voice cracked. Because it was, I thought. A trap you all set and then fell into. Before she could retreat behind her tears, another knock at the door. It was Grant, the man she'd been engaged to. Or maybe still was. I just have one question, he said to her. Why were you at a land negotiation in Santa Fe the same weekend you told me you were planning a bridal shower? Her mouth opened, closed. Her entire performance fractured. I let the silence do the talking. Then I said the only thing I came to say. I didn't break this family. I just stopped letting it break me. I turned to Gideon. Let's move forward with the legal filings. From now on, they don't talk to me. They talk to you. He nodded once. Outside the glass walls, Meredith was already reaching for her coat. Paisley's face was pale hollow. Harlan looked like he'd just realized he was no longer in charge. But I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed. And then I looked at my phone. There were already new messages, more calls, more apologies that weren't really apologies. Gideon saw me looking and said, "We have one more day. If we don't seal this, they'll find another way to pull you back." "I know," I said. "Let's finish it." The next morning I walked into Barron Legal for the last time, not as the guy hoping for a lifeline, but as the man locking every door they once used to trap me. Gideon was already on the phone with the county registrar. The emergency petition was denied, he said as I walked in. Insufficient cause. The appendix from your grandmother made it clear. They tried Talon, but they didn't have enough. He hung up, looked at me. "You ready to sign everything?" I nodded. We started with the affidavit, my own sworn statement about their behavior, their manipulation, their coordinated attack on my mental state. Then the declaration protecting me from further forced evaluations unless ordered by a court with evidence, not gossip. Rowan had already emailed a timeline of communications detailing who initiated what and when. Gideon submitted that to the fraud department at the registrar's office. The signature scans, the matching metadata. A case was opening. I didn't care about charges. I just wanted it to stop. Next came the transfer of assets. I signed pages and pages under Gideon's supervision, clear, final, precise. I chose new structures for accounts, set up alerts, layers of control. No one could touch a dollar or document without my fingerprint now. At the end, Gideon asked, "Do you want to hear the latest from them?" "No. They're calling this a misunderstanding. I'm calling it history." I walked out of the office. Outside, the sky was overcast, the wind soft. I didn't go home. I went to my grandmother's house, now legally mine. Inside, the furniture hadn't moved. The photo frames still sat where she left them. I touched the armrest she used to lean on when she read the paper. And then I sat down and pulled out the last letter I'd found tucked behind her old recipe box. She'd written, "You saw me as a person, Talon, not a prize. That's why you're the one I trust." I folded the letter and slid it back in the box. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. "Meredith, can we talk, Harlan? Let's resolve this without drama. Paisley." "You didn't have to humiliate us." I turned off my screen. That wasn't silence. That was peace. And this time, it belonged to me. I keep thinking about how quiet it got after everything was said and done. Not the kind of quiet that feels like punishment. The kind that finally belongs to you. And maybe that's the part that stays with me most. Because in the middle of all the papers and threats and pressure, what I really got back wasn't money. It was my own voice. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to reclaim when the people closest to you have been speaking over you for years. If there's anything we can hold from this, it's that we don't always get to choose who shows up for us. But we do get to choose what we accept, what we carry, and what we put down. We can still lead with kindness without handing our life back to someone who keeps reaching for the steering wheel. We can feel compassion and still keep a boundary. Both things can be true. And if you've ever been the one left out, overlooked, or treated like your milestones didn't count, I'm really glad you were here with me. If you want to leave a few lines in the comments, just tell me where you're watching from or what part of this hit closest to home. And if you'd like to stay in a place where stories get heard without judgment, you can subscribe. Not as a favor, but as a way of joining this little community of listeners and sharers. All right, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.